Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Priori, the Digital Marketing Specialist at TPGI. We'll wait one more minute as people sign in and we'll get started briefly. Still see a few people coming in, so we're just going to give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar, Small Changes for Big Impact, Creating Accessible Word Documents with Gene Strohmeyer, our accessibility engineer. So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. Firstly, this session is being recorded and we will email everyone the recording after the event. Secondly, we have captions available, so feel free to use them as needed. Next, we will have some time for a live Q&A later in the webinar, so please use the Q&A box and we will answer as many of the questions as we can before the end of the presentation. And then lastly, if anyone needs any accessibility support, training, or usability testing, we'll send out an email with a link to schedule a time to speak with one of our experts. So with that, I'll let Jean get started and provide an introduction for herself. Go ahead, Jean.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gene Strohmeyer. I'm an accessibility engineer here at TPGI. That's our logo on the top and side of the screen. I've been with the company for over 5 years and I specialize in document remediation. For those of you who will be referring back to the recording to follow along, I'll do my best to share the keystrokes for navigation as I discuss different features and work. Please note that I'm currently working in the Office 365 version of Microsoft Word for Windows Desktop. If you're working from a different version or environment, the keystrokes may be a little different. So in this session, I'll be discussing the document accessibility mindset. So I live and breathe document accessibility, but why should you care? Then I'll share your document accessibility toolset, beginning with your automated testing tool, Word's built-in accessibility checker, and how to use it to help identify issues. For manual testing, I'll share how to identify some common accessibility issues in Word and how to prevent or address them. As I go through, I'll point out when these accessibility considerations may benefit all users and not just users with disabilities. I'll also share a bit about preparing Word documents for conversion to PDF while maintaining accessibility. And I'll finish with a brief demonstration of some of the small changes you can make. Today we'll be focusing on documents or Word docs specifically and how they can be more accessible. But before we do, let's talk a bit about the mindset behind document accessibility, beginning with its impact. Without even going into the legal ramifications or ethical implications of inaccessibility, I'm talking about your reach or the extent of influence your documents can have. During one of Microsoft's developer conferences, they revealed there are 1.2 billion Office users. The current world population is estimated at 7.98 billion as of October 2022, so that's about 1 in 8 people on Earth. This number probably starts to get closer to 1 in 5 or 6 people when you start looking at the number of Office users out of the total number of people who use computers. So I'm guessing you're here because you use Office. It's used at work, in schools. In fact, it's so important to prospective employers that inmates are learning to use it. Even if you've never created a PowerPoint presentation before, I'm currently presenting one, so we can even make a case for being indirectly affected by it. So that's a lot of people. Our documents, our projects, our work, it's our message, our purpose. You know, it's important to us. When we create documents, we want to deliver a message. To create documents, we put in effort. Sometimes a lot of time and resources goes into it. And if you're putting in this effort, don't you want your message to be read by your intended audience? That's how our purpose gains traction, how we communicate our message. Anyone who wants or needs to read your document should be able to. And you as a document creator have control over this. If you don't create your documents with accessibility in mind, people with a disability may only receive part of your message. Anyone who has played a game of telephone can likely attest to how easily a message can be altered. So what happens to your message when it's missing fragments or parts of the message are not in the correct order? When documents are inaccessible, you force potential users to make a best guess on the order or the structure of your message, and to try to fill in any missing gaps on their own or make do without, no matter how significant those parts may be. You may also be forcing your potential users to split their attention from your message to monitor whether their guesses are accurate or not. On the other hand, you can choose to be deliberately inclusive in support of accessibility needs. To start with accessibility in mind from the beginning, knowing that it's more efficient to create documents with accessibility in mind. Plus, improving accessibility lends itself to improving usability as well. So it helps everyone. So going back to Word, one tool I'd like to introduce you to is the built-in accessibility checker. This is an automated tool that reports on accessibility issues in Word documents. There are a couple ways you can access it. One is by selecting File, then Info, then Check for Issues, then Check Accessibility. The keystroke sequence is Alt F, I, then I again, A. You can also select Review, then Check Accessibility in the Accessibility section, or Alt, then R, then A1, then A. This will bring up an accessibility pane to the right of the document in the main content area that resembles a sheet of paper. You can navigate to the different elements in the main view by pressing F6 to go forward or Shift plus F6 to go backward. The accessibility panel also explains why you should fix the issues and the steps to fix them under additional information. These adjust when you select a specific issue, and you can access it by pressing Tab past the checkbox to keep Accessibility Checker running while you work. The accessibility panel will adjust as you create or remove accessibility issues in real time, so I recommend keeping this checkbox checked. On this slide, we have a screenshot of the accessibility panel with instances for errors, warnings, and intelligent services, the Keep Accessibility Checker Running checkbox, and additional information with why fix and steps to fix. There's also a close-up on errors as the type of inspection result, with image or object not in line as the parent issue and picture 2 as the child instance. The inspection results are usually divided into errors, warnings, tips, or intelligent services with a brief description of the issue as a parent node and each instance of the issue as a child node. Each occurrence can be expanded to reveal a set of recommended actions and other suggestions. The inspection results can be navigated using the up or down arrow keys, while Enter or Spacebar will expand or collapse the nodes and options. Errors identify issues that will prevent users with disabilities from reading the content in the document. For example, an image that is missing alternative text or alt text would be identified as an error. Warnings identify issues that will make it difficult for users with disabilities to read the content in the file in the document. For example, if text is not sufficiently contrast against the background, or if an image is not positioned in line with text. Tips identify when there's content that could be better organized or presented in a way that might improve the user's experience. And intelligent services. So Office's intelligent services automatically generates alternative text in the description field using image recognition, followed by a note indicating it was automatically generated. This is flagged by the accessibility checker because this automatically generated description may not be accurate and requires manual verification about the accuracy. Here we have an icon representing a misword and an example of automatically generated alt in the alt text panel stating graphical user interface icon, description automatically generated. Notice the generated alt does not refer to what the icon represents. Like all other automated tools for accessibility, the built-in accessibility checker does not account for every accessibility issue. You would still need some manual testing for a comprehensive test. However, it's still a great tool, and I recommend you run it on all of your documents. So the tool you need to manually test lies in your own knowledge and ability to recognize accessibility issues. To take a closer look, I just mentioned color contrast, and it's an accessibility issue I come across frequently in documents. On this slide, we have an example of the word small that is low contrast, followed by a simulation of how the same low contrast text would appear to someone with deuteranomaly. Deuteranomaly, which makes green appear more red, is the most common kind of color blindness. Notice the word small goes from being difficult to read to being nearly impossible to make out. So it's important to take color contrast into account. Color contrast isn't only important for accessibility. I personally find documents easier to read when text or other important visual elements contrast well against the background. So this is one of those instances where resolving an accessibility issue lends itself to better usability for all users or universal usability. This may be more of a consideration for universal usability, but I also recommend taking care when choosing the font and font sizes of your content. On this slide, we have an example of the word small in very small letters, narrow in a narrow font with little space between each letter, and decorative in a decorative font with each letter surrounded by swirls and flourishes. And all three are difficult to read. Avoiding these will make your documents legible for all readers. Next, we'll discuss avoiding using color as the only way of representing information. On this slide, we have the instructions. Please see the comment in red for the main point. This is followed by violets are blue in gray text, and the ocean is blue in red text. If a user had red or monochromatic blindness, they might have difficulty distinguishing what is the main point. If the instructions state, please see the comment in red following the asterisk for the main point, the asterisk provides a secondary indicator of the information presented by the color. For another example, it's common to see hyperlinks in a blue font with an underline, like we have here. We also have the word blue in blue font and the word link in blue font. And as I hover my cursor over both, it should be that only the word link acts as a hyperlink and shows the tooltip with the user URL. If a hyperlink is only distinct from its surrounding text by the font color being blue, and there is no underline, it may be challenging to identify which blue text is linked or not. The addition of the underline adds to universal usability as well, because it makes it easier for everyone to identify linked text. It's also important to provide meaningful text, linked text that's as concise as possible. Screen readers may read each character of the URL like https://www.w3.org. This can be tedious to listen to, especially if the URL is long. So the best practice is to provide a more meaningful name instead. Providing a meaningful name instead of generic phrases may also prevent the list of links from being repetitive while not providing context. Examples of generic phrases include click here, read more, visit website. In Word, I find it easiest to first type out the meaningful link text and select it. Then I bring up the context menu and select the link. This will bring up a dialog to insert hyperlink. The text to display field will already be populated with the selected text, and you can enter the URL in the address field. The keystrokes upon entering the intended link text would be to press Ctrl plus Shift plus left arrow until all the link text is selected, then Ctrl and K for the insert hyperlink dialog. Focus will be on the address field. You can enter the URL and press enter or select OK. On this slide, we have the context menu in Word. Upon selecting the text, the link will be applied to with the link option highlighted. And the insert hyperlink dialog with text to display and address fields highlighted and filled in with World Wide Web Consortium or W3C homepage and the URL along with the OK button. Screen readers have a mode of navigation by a list of the links on the page. In JAWS, this is by pressing Insert plus F7. On this slide, we have a screenshot of the links list dialog in JAWS. The first link is click here, followed by color, and the names of various tools and pages on color, like Color Contrast Analyzer, or CCA, or COBLIS. And we can get a feel for how helpful the link text is without any context and just list it out. Meaningful link text not only benefits all users, but if the document were to be distributed online, it would have the added benefit of optimizing your document for search engines as they crawl for link text before returning relevant queries. I also mentioned images that are missing alternative text earlier, and this applies to all other objects. Common objects include images, data tables, charts, and text boxes. To get to the alt text panel in Word, you can focus on the object, then right-click for the context menu, then select View Alt Text. The keystrokes for this are the menu key, then A. On this slide, we have a selected image of the MS Word icon in a Word document and the context menu with a highlight on the option to view alt text. On this next slide, we have the selected image of the MS Word icon and a snippet of the alt text panel. The panel provides instructions to consider when creating appropriate alt text, like how would you describe the subjects in detail or the actions or interactions to someone who is blind or low vision. There's also the input field. Ideally, text would not be included in images and would be replaced with actual text unless the presentation of the text was necessary, like a logo. However, if text is included, the alternative text or alt text would relay that or convey equivalent information as presented in the object. If you include a chart in your document and the surrounding text does not summarize the contents, detail the significance of what the chart relays, then the alternative text. Note that the accessibility checker can only check whether alt text is present or not. Because it does not check how accurately it reflects the object, it's important to check each object, even if it does not get flagged by the checker. If your image is purely decorative, there's also a checkbox in the alt text panel to mark as decorative. It's important to account for the context of images, like an image that is informative, but repeats information that is already provided in the surrounding context, or an image that would be decorative if it weren't illustrating an example of a point. On this slide, we have a Word document with heading text, decorative image example, followed by an image of a decorative flourish. The alt text panel shows the design flourish resembling tilde squiggle, and the mark is decorative checkbox is unchecked because that image of the flourish provides an example. Similar to meaningful text for links, alt text for images also optimize your document for search engines since they're also crawlable. Next, we have objects that are not in line with text, and this has to do with how objects are positioned in a Word document. If an object is in focus, you can right-click it to bring up the context menu. From this menu, you can select Wrap Text, which brings up a secondary set of options. Here, you want to make sure you choose in line with text. The keystrokes for this with the object in focus are menu WI. On this slide, we have the context menu with wrap text highlighted with inline with text as the first highlighted option, as well as an example of a selected option highlighted for a top and bottom wrap where text would wrap around the top and bottom of the object. There is also a checked option to fix position on page as opposed to the move with text option. Please avoid all these options and go with inline with text. The other options may allow for you to float an object to a specific location on the page. It's common to see other objects selected because of the flexibility it gives. However, this forces screen readers to guess the location of the object, and it may not be in the correct context when it's read. The accessibility checker does not flag documents for empty document properties, but they're still important for accessibility. They're essentially metadata about the document, and they enable users to search their documents by title, subject, author, or keywords. Document properties also relate to assistive technologies, or AT, the language of the document, so a screen reader would know to read the document in English or en français. You can reach document properties by selecting File, then Info. Select Properties to reveal the Advanced Properties option and select that. The keystrokes for this are Alt F I Q S. Focus will be on Advanced Properties. So press Enter to select. This will reveal a dialog, and under the Summary tab. On this slide, we have a screenshot of the Summary tab with small changes for Big Impact Word Demo in the title field, Accessibility Review Demonstration as the subject, TPGI, the organization and not the individual, as the author, and keywords like Word, Documents, Access, and Headings. There's also a screenshot of the custom tab contents with a field for the name of the custom property where language is selected from a list of choices. Text is selected as the property type, and English is the value of the language property. Many PDFs start as Word documents. And from my experience, the most common accessibility issues in PDFs result from a lack of or inappropriate document metadata. So if you're planning to convert your document to PDF, you may only need to enter the document properties in the Word version so it can carry over to the PDF. For information rights management or IRM protection, there is a setting to disable the access content programmatically option in the document permission settings. It's important that this is enabled for assistive technology devices like screen readers to access the document. If this isn't flagged by the accessibility checker, you probably don't need to worry about it. But in case it needs to be addressed, and get ready because the instructions are kind of long, we can go to File, then Info, then Protect Document, then Restrict Access, then Restricted Access. In the permissions dialog, select Restrict Permissions to this document, then More Options. In the secondary dialog, ensure Access Content Programmatically is selected. The keystrokes are Alt F I P R, R again, then R, then O, R, O, and Enter. This slide shows the permission dialog with restrict permission to this document checked and access content programmatically checked. The last common issue I'll discuss today deals with styling text as headings. You want to structure your content and make it easier to navigate by including section headings that provide structural markup for your document. Avoid setting text as a heading if you only want to style it, and reserve headings to signify the beginning of a new topical section. You also want to nest these headings hierarchically by the order of importance. For example, have the most important text that provides the overall topic or title of the document as a heading 1. Nest heading 2s as direct child nodes of the heading 1, and nest heading 3s directly under the heading 2s. Avoid skipping from, say, a heading 1 to a heading 3 and having the heading 3 as the same hierarchical level as the heading 2 topically before skipping again to a heading 4. People who have limited mobility, who use mouth sticks or switches, also benefit from the addition of structural markup because it allows them to skip to their desired content instead of having to tap repeatedly through an entire document. This is another example of accessibility for universal usability because easier navigation through a document helps everyone. Imagine a textbook without a table of contents or an appendix and no distinguishable headings. Or imagine a long pre-recorded phone menu that you can't skip throughout your call. I'll share a bit about conversion to PDF before going in more detail on styling text and the structural markup in my demo. So here we have the Adobe Acrobat logo, which is the program I use for converting to PDF and remediating or post-processing of the output. As conversion to PDF is a common practice, it can be handy to know how to convert to PDF while maintaining some of the structural markup that we've implemented in the Word version. For PDFs, the structure is captured as tags that are quite similar to HTML tags. Ensuring structural markup like headings and document metadata transfer when converting to PDF will minimize how much we need to do post-processing. Acrobat's PDF Maker is an Office add-in for conversion to PDF that comes with Adobe Acrobat Pro. It'll give the most accessible output and will require the least amount of processing after conversion. On the slide, we have the additional Acrobat tab in the menu when the add-in is enabled. In my environment, it follows what was previously the last menu option or the Help tab. The first option in the ribbon will be Create PDF, followed by Preferences, which are also highlighted. Then we have the Save as Adobe PDF tab highlighted that becomes available under the File menu. If you select Preferences, a dialog appears with focus on the Settings tab. The keystrokes for this will be Alt and Y2 for the Acrobat tab, then S for Preferences. This is a screenshot of the Settings tab. Here, you'll want to ensure you have Convert Document Information and Enable Accessibility and Reflow with tagged Adobe PDF checked. And both have been highlighted. You'll also want to avoid checking Enable Advanced Tagging, which has also been highlighted. You will only need to adjust these preferences once. Enabling advanced tagging can actually result in a PDF that needs more post-processing after the conversion from Word. The other options can be adjusted based on your needs. After setting up your preferences, Create PDF is what you should select, or press Alt, then Y2, then C. Note that this should yield the same results as selecting File, then Save as Adobe PDF. The keystrokes are Alt, then F, then Y2. Even if you do not have Adobe Acrobat Pro on your computer, you can also convert by choosing File, then Save As, and select PDF as the Save As type. Be sure to select more options than options. The keystrokes are Alt, then FA, Y4, PDF, then Enter. Then Alt, A, Y6, and Alt plus O, and M to toggle the checkbox. On the slide, we have a screenshot of the file options in Word with both the Save As and Save as Adobe PDF options highlighted. There's also a highlight on PDF as the selected file type and more options link. There's also a screenshot of the options dialog with the document properties and document structure tags for accessibility options checked. Avoid printing to PDF by selecting File and Print with PDF as your printer. This tends to remove structural markup for accessibility in the resulting PDF. After converting the Word to a PDF, there will usually be some issues that remain that will need to be addressed. If you need more in-depth help with PDFs, we do offer PDF training, and we'd be happy to discuss that in more detail. I'm switching now to Word for my demo. Okay, so I'm going to start off by setting up my workspace. I like to have my navigation pane open by selecting the View tab and then checking the navigation pane option in the Show section of the ribbon, just right here. And that brings up the navigation pane on the left side prior to your main document workspace. The keystrokes for this are Alt, then W, then K. You can press the sequence again to toggle the navigation pane off. I also like to keep the accessibility checker running in case I introduce an accessibility issue. To do this, I'm going through the same steps as I would for the accessibility checker. I'm selecting Review, then Check Accessibility. In the accessibility section of the ribbon, or Alt R A1A. Then I'm checking Keep Accessibility Checker running while I work, or pressing Tab, then Spacebar to toggle the checkbox. With the workspace set up, let's get into formatting and styling the document. I'll be working from a demo document that I prepared, but when you're starting a new document, if you'd like to use a template, you can go to File, then New, and there will be a blank document option, followed by a field to search for online templates. The navigational keystrokes are Alt, then F, N, S. Starting with a template, you can customize the layout and styles used to meet accessibility needs. But what if you need something even more customized than one of these templates? You may be tempted to visually style your document structural elements like headings and links. When I first learned to use Word, this is how I was taught. I selected text that should be a heading. So this heading hierarchy text should be a heading. And I'm making it bold using the bold option in the font section of the ribbon, the Home tab. I'm increasing the font size to 26. And the keystrokes for the bold text is Alt H1 or Control plus B. And the keystrokes for the font size change are Alt HFS 26 or Control plus Shift plus P, and then 26 and Enter. Then I'm repeating this again for all text throughout the document that matches that heading level. However, this is not particularly efficient. My results may also not be uniform if I accidentally forget to adjust each instance of that heading level to bold or a size of 26. It also does not relay important structural information. I can instead set the styling and formatting once and apply the style each time. For those of you who have worked on web development, this is similar to the application of a cascading style sheet. To do this, I'm selecting an instance of the text that should be a heading. And in what's called the styles gallery, I'm selecting heading 2. The keystrokes for this are Alt, H, L, and selecting heading 2. Notice when I do, this text is visible at its corresponding hierarchical level in the navigation pane. Right here. This way, the navigation pane gives me an overview of the document structure. If you accidentally set an entire section under the heading level with the wrong level, you can promote or demote that level in the navigation pane by highlighting the heading text and bringing up the context menu and selecting promote or demote. Right. So the keystrokes are menu, M for promote, or T for demote. Setting up headings also enables you to easily create a table of contents by going to the References tab. Then Table of Contents. The keystrokes are Alt, S, T. Then you can select from the automatic built-in options or customize your own. The way headings enable these navigation features, it also does so for assistive technologies. If you want to adjust the appearance of that heading text, I can bring up the context menu for the heading 2 listed in the styles gallery. And then select modify to bring up a document, to bring up a dialog with formatting options. The keystrokes are Alt, H, L, selecting heading 2, menu button, M, and making your desired adjustments. Here I am adjusting the font size to be larger. Observe how when I do this, the changes are applied to all other instances. One thing I like to note here is that under properties, the style is based on a normal style. I'm going to bring up that menu again for the dialog. And it says style based on normal. The style for the following paragraph is body text. I'll share a bit more about this in just a bit. So I'm applying the heading style to another instance of text at that heading level. Notice that there is text that is incorrectly set as a heading level 2. Ideally, this would be body text. The reason we do not set this with the normal option in the styles gallery, which is here, is because normal serves more as a mother style template. When the normal style is adjusted, you may have other styles inheriting these adjustments. I try to be careful about having styles based on other styles because it can make modifying other styles trickier down the line. There is a hidden until used style from the default list of styles called body text, and we're going to reveal it in the styles gallery. So I highlighted the text. That shouldn't be a heading. And from the home tab, I'm selecting style gallery options and then apply styles. Or pressing Alt, H, L, then A. This brings up an apply styles dialog, and then I'm typing in body text and then pressing enter to apply it. Next, I'm selecting more options for styles in the home tab. Or pressing Alt, H, Fy to bring up a styles pane. I just dragged it over to the side, but you don't necessarily need to. That's just how I work. So with body text selected in the list of styles, I'm bringing up the context menu and selecting add to style gallery. The keystrokes are the menu key, then G. In the styles pane, if I select options, I can choose new documents based on this template. So in the styles pane, I'm selecting recommended. They're sorted as recommended. And you can adjust these. So if they're currently, if they're in the current document, they'll be specific to this document. When you select to have the style for the body text to be with new documents based on this template, then that'll ensure that the body text style will always be available in the styles gallery with every new document. And if I want to adjust the priority of a style in the style gallery, I can select the manage styles button from the styles pane, which is the third option. or navigate to it with the tab key. This brings up the Manage Styles dialog. In the Recommend tab, there is a list box with last body text hide until used highlighted. So this is the Recommend tab. I can assign a value or press Alt plus V to set the priority to 1. I'm also adjusting the view to show. Or pressing Alt W. Then I'm selecting new documents based on this template. Or, well, in this case, I'm not because it's already showing, but okay. So you can apply this to other available styles or hide styles in the styles gallery to best suit your needs. If you tend to override the styles in the styles gallery by making changes directly with the font options, you can set up your options in Word to track whenever you override a style, or if a blank space is styled on its own with a dotted underline by going to File, then Options. And selecting the Advanced tab, then checking Keep Track of Formatting, which I've already done. Or Alt F T A, then Alt plus E, E again, spacebar to toggle, Alt F, and then spacebar to toggle. It's a best practice to avoid repeating inserting tabs to align content or adding extra hard returns to position content by pressing the Enter key repeatedly. I'll go over one more quick thing. So let's quickly adjust that low contrast text to the heading text by selecting that text and choosing heading 1, choosing the heading 1 option from styles. That's Alt H L arrow keys to heading 1. Notice the arrow for contrast is no longer in the accessibility pane. And one last thing I'd like to go over are lists, which are another structural element that relays information to assistive technology and enables navigation features. To use structural lists in words, highlight a list item and select the Home tab and the paragraph section of the ribbon here. And then select bullets if the list item is part of an unordered list, or numbering if the list is part of an ordered list. The keystrokes are Alt then H, then U for bullets, or N for numbering. I'm gonna wrap things up here so we have a little time for questions, with a call to keep your tool set in mind the next time you create a Word doc and to choose to be deliberately inclusive. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jean. We are getting a few questions coming through, so we can dive right into those if that works.
Yeah.
So John is asking, how accurate / reliable is the accessibility checker in Word?
I would say that it's pretty accurate. There's times when you might get like a false positive, and I wouldn't rely on it completely as so I would always do like a manual check, but it would be like it's not necessarily going to hurt to run it. Does that answer the question?
Great. Bruce is curious, for a link address, is it important to include the https://? Is the address starting with www sufficient?
I would give the whole URL when entering the link URL, but I would, if I can, for the actual text that's being that's visible or that's being relayed, I would have that as that meaningful link text.
Kristen is asking, wrap text option at the 12:23 minute mark. I often get object not found or not in line error message. How do I fix this? Usually a banner table logo with document title that I format into a 2-cell table.
Okay, so I can quickly go over that. Let me make sure. So what we have here is the this image of the Microsoft Word icon.
Sorry, Gene, I don't know if you're sharing your screen right now.
Oh, am I not? Sorry. Try that again. Okay. Am I sharing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this image of the MS Word icon is currently not set as in line with text. And when I adjust it to be in line with text, that's menu, W, then I, while it's selected. Notice that it jumps to where in the document it will actually be read by the screen reader. Since we want it to be read after the text instead of before, instead of breaking apart the small changes for big impact Word document demo, where it's currently located. We want to cut and paste either the image to be positioned prior to the image to be cut and paste after the text, or cut and paste this Word document demo text. To follow directly after the small changes for big impact text. And so now we have it that it's in line And I'll just go over that again. So it was the menu, then wrap text, then inline with text. And it's no longer going to be in that accessibility pane from the accessibility checker. Were there more questions?
Yes. So Ava is curious. I have a question about heading structure of the Office document. The website uses heading level 1 only once for the page title. How is it in the docs? Does it apply the same? Or is it the title style used for the page title and then the level 1 heading can be repeated all for all top level headings in the document?
I'd say it depends on the way how your document is structured. So if your document has, I guess, multiple topics that are equally as important, that are that top tier, at that top tier level of importance, then you could technically have more than one heading one. And the accessibility checker would flag it, but it wouldn't necessarily be an error. I try to avoid that if I can. So in this case, I would have, the small changes for big impact Word deck and demo, and only have that as the very first heading one.
Bridget's asking, since newer versions of the Mac or the Mac versions of Word Office don't share the repeatable blanks in the accessibility checker inspection results, do you have strategies for tracking these issues?
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on my paragraph markings. That's this button here. And what it does is it reveals every instance where there's like a hard return, where there's tabs. And in this case, I'll actually remove these. Um, so that would be the way to toggle that paragraph marking on or off in order to identify, like, to see every time you use those blank space characters.
Great. There are some questions coming through the chat as well, so I'm running through those briefly. Mike wanted to know, you suggested that we shouldn't use enable advanced tagging when creating a PDF under preferences settings. Can you elaborate on this? I have it set to enabled, as I assumed it would be the most complete set of tags with Adobe Pro.
Sure. So I just find that when I have that unchecked, that I get cleaner results on the PDF side. Sometimes what it'll do is or it might be best if I actually just go ahead and try. So if I go to file and then save as Adobe PDF. It was also adjust the preferences to have it enabled. So the first version is without, and this is the tagging structure. And then when I have the enabled tagging structure, the enabled advanced tagging, these are the results. So they look pretty similar, but notice how the p tags are, and they're also catching every instance where there was repeated blank characters. But in this case, you also get that, but that p tag is more of a the p tag is like they look different. There is that indicator in the tags, and the p tag with that indicator is the p tag that you want. So it might also be that you're getting, like, you might get certain certain tags that are associated with a completely different style that you created. And they'll show up within your tagging structure, but they won't necessarily be meaningful. So it's just a general tip to keep that checkbox unchecked.
I think we have one more question. I know we're a couple minutes over, but I think that we just have one more. CJ wanted to know, how do you change the color of the URL hyperlink to be there is sufficiently accessible color contrast for the text?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. How can you change the color of the URL hyperlink to be sure that it is sufficiently accessible color contrast for the text?
Okay, so in you can actually change it from your styles gallery. So you would select the link text and then modify. And there you have a font color option. So if you want it to be, like if it, let's say your background is black and you need white link text, then you would select that white color instead. And then press OK.
Great. CJ's a follow-up. So it must be done via the modify style.
That would be the way to keep the link text appearing consistently. If you change it directly using this font section, then you run the risk of introducing, like inconsistent coloring throughout your document.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you very much, Jean, for your presentation. I think that answers all of our questions. So a recording will be made available, and we'll send that out to all the attendees after the webinar. But thank you all for attending. And Jean, if you don't have any other thoughts or comments, have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.